Have you ever wondered what really happens in a hospital after midnight when the world goes quiet, and the stories no one talks about begin to surface? What if I told you that some patients come in, and are never seen again? Tonight, I'm sharing a true nightmare that will change the way you see hospitals forever. Stay with me until the end, because some mysteries only reveal themselves in the darkest hours. I'm an ER doctor. People expect me to be brave, unshakable. Sometimes, I am. But the night shift has its own rules, and nobody tells you what fear really means until you've felt it breathing on the back of your neck at 3:27 a.m. I never believed the old stories. Every hospital has them. Ghost patients, cold spots, monitors that beep for empty beds. Most are just nerves and caffeine, but I know which stories are true now. I learned the hard way. The ER is a liminal place. People slip in and out. Most make it, some don't. We try not to dwell on the ones who leave cold. It's a survival trick. But you remember the cases that didn't make sense. That night started like any other. Thunder outside, the kind that shakes the ambulance bay. The fluorescent lights flickered in their usual Morse code. My shoes squeaked on the linoleum. The smell bleach, blood, burnt coffee never leaves your hair. My partner, Samira, called from triage. Her voice was strained. "Can you come here? Now." She didn't scare easy. I found her by room 3, pale under the lights. A girl sat on the bed, maybe 15, wet hair plastered to her cheeks. She wore a hospital gown backwards, open in the front. Shivering though the room was warm. "Walk in," I asked. Samira nodded. She says she's lost. No ID, doesn't know her name, keeps asking for her mother. I approached, gentle eye. "Can you tell me what happened?" Her eyes darted around, too wide, black swallowing the iris. "He said to wait here. He said you'd help me." She pointed at the glass window behind me. There was nothing there. I checked her pulse. Weak, too slow, cold, clammy skin, no fever. I pressed for injuries. Nothing but 2 parallel red marks along her left forearm, not fresh, healed over. We ran the usual labs. Her blood type didn't match any record. Her temperature dropped, despite the warm room. I wrapped her in blankets. Still shivering, the nurse whispered, "She won't say her name, won't eat or drink." I pulled the curtain and sat on the edge of the bed. "What's your mother's name?" She pressed her lips tight. "She comes at night," she whispered. She stands behind the curtain. I can't see her face. My skin crawled. I glanced behind the curtain, empty. But it felt crowded, like someone else breathing close. Samira handed me the chart. Her hands shook. "You see the admit time?" I frowned. 3:27 a.m. The clock above the door blinked 3:12. "How?" she shrugged. "Glitch maybe." I returned to the bed. The girl's eyes were closed now, slow breaths, but her chest barely moved, like the air was thickening. A monitor beeped. Heart rate, 44, too low. The lights flickered, went out for half a second. I felt something cold on my shoulder. I turned nothing. My own reflection looked back at me from the glass, pale, wide-eyed. Another beep, then the static-filled intercom crackled. Code blue, room 3, but we were the only team on. No code had been called. I rushed to the hallway, empty, except for the mop bucket's slow, rhythmic drip. I turned back. The girl was gone. I checked every corner. Bathrooms, empty. The supply closet, nothing. I called security. They checked the exits, no one left. I returned to room 3. The blanket still warm. A faint shape dented the pillow. Then I saw it. On the windowsill, a child's bracelet. Blue faded letters. The name had worn away, just a date left. 10 years ago. Tonight. 3:27 a.m. I stared. The air turned sharp, like metal. I picked it up. It was cold, so cold, it burned my fingers. The monitor kept beeping, slow and steady, as if a heart was still beating somewhere close. A shadow moved behind the curtain. I stepped forward. Nothing but my own reflection, ghostly in the glass. I checked the computer logs. There had been 3 admissions at 3:27 a.m. over the last 10 years. Every case, a girl, no name, lost and asking for her mother. Each one vanished before sunrise. No records, no discharge, only a blue bracelet found. Samira and I locked the room that night. We stopped taking patients in 3. Staff joked about bad wiring, but they never worked a rainstorm alone again. Sometimes on thunder nights I hear the monitors beeping from room 3. When the power flickers, I see the shape of a girl sitting on the bed, swinging her feet, waiting, and I feel someone watching from behind the curtain most nights. I keep my head down, my hands busy, my eyes forward. But when the clock hits 3:27, I pause. I listen for the slow beep, I checked my wrist for a blue bracelet I never put on, and I remember bravery isn't about not feeling fear. It's about knowing which stories to believe, and which rooms to leave locked no matter how many times you hear someone calling for help from behind the curtain. I've seen a lot of strange things in medicine, things no textbook ever prepared me for. But there's one shift I still can't shake, no matter how many nights I work, no matter how many times I try to explain it away. It was a Tuesday, which means nothing and everything in the ER. The full moon made the night restless. The halls felt tighter, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something. At 2:04 a.m., just as I was finishing charting on a drunk driver with a split eyebrow, the triage phone buzzed. I almost didn't answer. That's how these stories always start. Ambulance inbound. The voice crackled. Unresponsive. Male, mid-40s. Unknown downtime. Cardiac arrest in transit. Revived en route. Normal stuff. Not easy, but normal. But then, he coded a second time right as we turned onto the hospital drive. Something's wrong with the vitals. He keeps coming back. And then going flat again, when the gurney burst through the automatic doors. I smelled something wrong, an old, sharp, metallic temps mixed with rot. It was more than blood. I told myself it was just a septic wound. We worked him, lines in, intubation, chest compressions. We got a pulse. I checked his pupils. Blown, but he blinked. His skin was the color of paper, soaked in cold sweat. When we pulled off his shirt, I saw scars down his chest. Old surgical tracks like train rails leading nowhere. I asked the medic, "Where'd you find him?" She hesitated. "Under the old overpass. They say people don't last there long." He had this. She handed me a photo ID from another hospital. The man's name was John Avery. The hospital, mine, but the ID had a discharge date stamped from 7 years ago. Today's date. "John, can you hear me?" His eyes flickered open. He looked at me, then straight past me, his mouth moving. "Where's my room?" he whispered. "You're in the ear. You had a heart attack. Do you know what day it is?" He shook his head, the monitor beeping, irregular and slow. "Do you remember what happened?" he whispered. "I was supposed to stay. I wasn't supposed to go. Not tonight." We pushed labs. His potassium was high. Blood was dark, thick. I called for dialysis. I started paperwork for the ICU. I tried not to look at the photo ID again. Nurse Kelly leaned in. "You know him?" I shook my head, but something in my gut twisted. "He was here before," she said quietly. "That's why he's back." The room felt colder. I saw my own breath when I spoke. The lights flickered. The monitor beeped, then flatlined. We started CPR, again. He came back, for a moment, eyes open, wild, voice raw. "Don't let them send me downstairs, please." I didn't know what he meant. He clutched my sleeve, cold hand digging in. "Not the elevator. It's waiting." The monitor shrieked. VFib. We shocked him once, twice, 3 times. He coded again, no pulse. I called the time of death. I wrote his name, the date, the hour. A porter came to take him to the morgue. I followed, uneasy. When we reached the elevator, the doors slid open by themselves. A blast of icy air hit us. The lights inside flickered, as if the bulbs were underwater. We wheeled him in. The elevator didn't move. Then, all the lights in the hallway went out. Just darkness. I heard the porter's breath, ragged and fast. A heavy, wet smell like grave dirt and rust. The elevator doors slid shut, but instead of moving down, the panel glowed with a number I'd never seen, -2. A scratching sound, faint at first, then louder. It came from inside the walls. The stretcher shook. I reached for the emergency button, but my hand froze. John's body sat up. His eyes were wide and black, mouth moving soundlessly. He pointed at the floor. His voice, low, guttural, wrong-filled the elevator. "I never left. I waited. You made me leave. I tried to move. I couldn't." The porter screamed. The elevator dropped. A shock like falling through ice. The lights went white, then out. When they came back, we were in the morgue. The doors slid open. The stretcher was empty. Only the old photo ID lay on the floor. Discharge date changed to tonight. I stumbled back upstairs. The ER was silent. Too silent. I checked the log. No record of John Avery. No ambulance arrival. No death called. Kelly found me, pale and shaking. "Did you?" I nodded. She showed me her arm. Deep scratches ran along her forearm, red and raw. "He grabbed me," she whispered. I looked at my sleeve. For dark marks, like someone had clung to me, refusing to let go. For the rest of the night, every time I passed the elevator, I heard a soft, metallic knock from below. Sometimes, when I ride alone, The doors will refuse to open on my floor. The panel flashes -2, just for a second. And sometimes, on the graveyard shift, when the ER is too quiet and the air is too cold, I hear the monitor beeping for a patient who isn't there. They say nobody ever really leaves a hospital. I used to laugh at that. Not anymore. Some patients are never discharged. Some rooms are never empty. And some nights you'll find yourself answering a call for help that you should have let go unanswered. I don't scare easy. I'm used to chaos, blood, screaming, alarms. But there's one thing every ER doctor dreads. A call from pediatrics at 2 a.m. Something about that time. The world feels thinner, like you could fall straight through it if you're not careful. It was a Wednesday, my 5th night in a row. My scrubs stank of sweat and antiseptic. I was so tired I couldn't remember my own birthday. The ER was quiet, too quiet. That kind of quiet that makes you suspicious. I was restocking the crash cart when the phone rang, shrill and sudden. "Can you come up?" It was Riley, the pes nurse. Her voice was wrong, flat, like she was swallowing words. "We've got a transfer. It's odd." I grabbed my stethoscope, forcing my legs to move. The hallway felt endless, lights flickering in that lazy, haunted way. My footsteps echoed, hollow and small. When I got to pediatrics, I smelled it instantly. Sweet, almost rotten, not like infection, like flowers left in a closed room for too long. The room was dim, one lamp on, shadows everywhere. A girl sat on the bed, knees tucked to her chest, 11, maybe 12. She didn't look up. Her hair was tangled, her face hidden. Riley whispered. She came from the psych floor. They said she was found wandering the halls, unresponsive. No family, no record. She keeps saying she's waiting for her sister. I crouched in front of her. "Hi, I'm Dr. Layla. Are you hurt?" She didn't move, just whispered. "She's coming. Don't let her in." My stomach twisted. I checked her vitals, heart rate slow, temperature dropping, but nothing urgent. Her arms were covered in faded scars, some new, some ancient. "The kind you see in kids who've known too much pain," Riley said. "She won't tell us her name, she just keeps repeating that line." And this, she held up a child's drawing. Crayons, red and black. 2 girls holding hands, one with her face scribbled out, underneath a single word. "Sorry." I asked the girl, "Where's your sister?" She finally looked up. Her eyes were colorless, like she hadn't slept in years. "She's mad. I shouldn't have let go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." The room temperature dropped. My skin prickled. I brushed it off. Sleep deprivation does weird things. Then the lights flickered, just for a second. Riley jumped. "Did you see?" I nodded. The heart monitor beeped, slow and steady. The girl stared at the door. "She's almost here." I moved to close the door. The knob was ice cold. I checked the hallway empty. The air felt heavy, thick, as if something was pressing on my chest. I sat by the girl. "You're safe here. No one can get in." She shook her head, hair swinging. "She always finds me, even in the walls, especially when it's quiet." Riley's pager beeped. She slipped out, promising to come back. I was alone with the girl, who was now rocking back and forth, murmuring, "Don't open it. Don't open it. Don't." A soft knock rattled the window. 3rd floor. Nothing could reach it from outside. The knock repeated, slow and deliberate. I checked the glass. Nothing. My own reflection, pale and drawn, stared back. Then a whisper close to my ear. But the girl's lips weren't moving. "Let me in." I spun, heart pounding. The girl screamed. A shrill, desperate sound that scraped the walls. Riley burst back in. "What's happening?" I shook my head, breath shallow. "Did you hear that voice?" She just stared at me, trembling. The monitor beeped faster, the heart rate climbing. The girl pointed at the closet. "She's in there." I opened the closet, expecting brooms, supplies. Instead, cold air poured out. Dark, impossibly dark. I reached inside. My hand went numb. Something brushed my fingers, small and cold, like a child's hand. I yanked my arm out, stumbling. The closet slammed shut on its own. The girl started to cry. She found me. She always finds me. Suddenly every alarm in the ward went off. All the monitors, all at once. A chorus of panicked beeping. Down the hall, doors began to slam, one after another. Patients stirred, crying out. Nurses ran past. But it was like I was invisible, moving in a world one step out of sync. I looked at the girl. She was gone, just gone. The bed was cold. The covers, undisturbed. Only the drawing remained, pinned under the pillow. But now, both faces were scribbled out. I ran to the nurse's station. "Where's the girl from room 12? I demanded. Riley shook her head, blank-faced. "We haven't had anyone in room 12 for months." That room's been sealed since the accident. The word hung in the air, sticky and awful. I remembered. Twin sisters. House fire. Only one made it out. She died here. Room 12. The other never found. I looked at my hand. A tiny perfect handprint was pressed in white on my skin, as if a child had clung to me in the dark. Now, on certain nights, when the halls are quiet and the flowers smell too sweet, I still hear the knock at the window. I still hear, "Let me in." And I know some things can't be fixed. Some sisters are never reunited. And some doors, once opened, never truly closed. No matter how many times I check the empty bed, or how tightly I grip my stethoscope, I can't shake the feeling that she's still waiting for her sister. Or maybe, just maybe, it's her sister waiting for me. I never wanted to believe in hospital curses. We deal in facts, not folklore. But sometimes, late at night, with the lights too bright and the world too quiet, the line between medicine and myth gets razor thin. It started on a Friday, the worst night for accidents. ID just finished cleaning up after a combative trauma patient, when the charge nurse called me over, her face drawn. "Can you check on a new admit? Room 9. She's odd." The chart was thin. No name, just Jane Doe, found wandering near the river, barefoot, soaked. No IDMs noted she didn't speak. No visible injuries. Vitals stable. I made my way to room 9. The air in the hallway felt heavier, like the oxygen was running out. She was sitting upright in bed, knees tucked under the blanket, staring at the far wall. Her hair was long, matted with mud and weeds. Her hospital gown looked too big, swallowing her thin shoulders. "Hi, I'm Dr. Miriam." No response. Her eyes didn't move. I tried again. "You're safe. You're in the hospital. Can you tell me your name?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I noticed her hand scratched, dirt under her nails, fingers swollen from cold. On her wrist was a thin silver bracelet, old, tarnished. I took her vitals, heart slow but regular, skin cold. When I shone my penlight in her eyes, her pupils didn't react, just endless dark wells. The nurse, Kat, came in behind me. She whispered, "She won't eat, she won't even blink, but she keeps looking at that wall." I glanced at the wall, just beige paint, nothing special. But as I watched, a shadow seemed to pool there, flickering in the light. I turned back to the woman. "Did you come from the river?" I asked. She blinked, barely. Her gaze never left the wall. "Is there someone I should call for you?" She finally moved her hand, trembling, pointed at the window. The blinds were shut tight, but the glass was fogged, as if someone was breathing on the other side. Kat shivered. "It's freezing in here. I'll grab another blanket." I tried to examine the woman's feet. She flinched, pulling back, eyes wide for the first time. I murmured, sorry, you're okay." She opened her mouth, and a whisper leaked out. "Don't let it in." My blood ran cold. "Don't let what in?" A hand clamped down on my wrist, bony fingers digging into my skin. "It follows. From the river." I told it no. I told it not to. The lights flickered, then snapped off, plunging the room into darkness. My heart hammered. I pulled out my phone for a flashlight. In the circle of light, I saw her eyes, now wild, terrified, darting to the door. Down the hall, alarms began to beep, then a wet, dragging sound, like something heavy sliding across linoleum. I forced my voice to stay calm. "Stay here. Okay, I'll be right back." She let go of my wrist. I could still feel the imprint of her fingers, icy and stiff. I stepped out, calling for help. The hallway was empty. No nurses, no patients. Every door was closed, but the beeping grew louder. Then, from room 7, a shadow leaked out into the hall, impossibly dark, moving against the flow of the light. I blinked. The shadow inched toward room 9. I rushed back. Inside, Jane Doe was no longer sitting up. She was pressed against the window, whispering frantically, fogging up the glass with each breath. I grabbed her shoulders. "What's happening? Who's following you?" She looked at me with absolute terror. "It's hungry. It wants my name." I shuddered. Kat returned, holding a warm blanket. She froze, eyes wide. "Did you see that?" She was staring at the floor where dirty, wet footprints tracked from the door to the bed. But Jane Doe hadn't moved. Suddenly, the intercom blared, static-filled, a voice distorted and low. "Room 9. Discharge required. No one calls for discharge at 3:44 a.m. I pressed the call button, but only static answered. The shadow pressed closer against the window. The blinds rattled. Jane Doe screamed, clutching her silver bracelet. "It wants me. Don't say my name. Don't let it hear," she choked, eyes rolling back. Her pulse thudded under my fingers. Slow, then gone. Alarms howled. I started compressions, my mind a blur. Kat called for a code, but no one answered. The world outside room 9 felt miles away. Then, as I pressed on Jane Doe's chest, water began seeping from under the bed. I smelled mud, river silt. The floor was slick, my shoes sliding. The lights flickered back on, harsh and blinding. Jane Doe gasped, eyes wide. "Please don't let it." She collapsed, pulse gone for good. I called time of death, voice shaking. Kat sobbed, backing away from the spreading puddle. We both stared as the puddle receded, vanishing into the cracks. On the bed, the silver bracelet was gone. The window was clear now, but in the faint reflection, I saw 3 people. Kat, myself, and behind us, a tall dripping figure with empty black eyes. I spun, heart racing, nothing but cold air. By sunrise, room 9 was dry. No record of the woman in the system. The bracelet never turned up. But sometimes, on call nights, I find muddy footprints by the ER door. And when the river floods, every monitor in the ward beeps at once at 3:44 a.m. That's when I remember Jane Doe's eyes, and her warning. Don't let it in. Don't ever give it your name. No one warns you that the hardest part of emergency medicine isn't blood or grief. It's the way the hospital changes shape at night, how shadows stretch long and deep, swallowing corners you swear weren't there during the day. It was a Sunday, dead hours between midnight and 4. Rain hammered the roof, relentless, as if the world outside was being washed away. Most of the team huddled at the nurses' station, scrolling, joking, desperate to stay awake. I reviewed charts, trying to focus, trying to ignore the crawling feeling between my shoulder blades. At 1:42 a.m., the fire doors down the east hall banged open, the security feed glitched, static bursting across the monitor, then the red light flashed at the ambulance bay. Trauma coming in, the charge nurse called. I shook off my fatigue and jogged down the corridor. The rain was coming sideways, filling the air with cold mist. A paramedic leaned over the gurney, his face pale and drawn. Found him outside St. Mary's, by the old chapel, collapsed, non-responsive, no ID, looks hypothermic. The patient was young, maybe 20, hair soaked black, lips nearly blue. As we rolled him in, the monitors started their mechanical lullaby beep beep, steady but faint. I started my exam, pupils sluggish, heart rate in the 40s, skin cold, clammy, but dry beneath the damp clothes. No track marks, no wounds, just something odd, a plastic rosary wound tied around his left wrist, digging into the skin. Old, brittle, black beads. I tried to slip it off. His eyes snapped open. I jumped. "Can you hear me?" He stared past me, not through me, past me. "They said I could come back," he whispered. His voice sounded wrong, doubled, like a tape played too slow. I glanced at the nurse. She looked pale, lips pressed thin. I tried to warm his hands. "You're safe now. What's your name?" He didn't answer. He only whispered, "Don't leave me alone with her." We started IVS labs scans, everything slow, like the air was thickening. When I touched the rosary again, his heart monitor glitched, the screen filled with strange symbols, zigzags, numbers, things I'd never seen. Then, for a moment, a line of text. "Room 11. I blinked. "Room 11 is storage," I said, more to myself than anyone. A voice crackled on the overhead intercom. "Doctor, please report to room 11. Static, then silence. The nurse looked at me, wide-eyed. "That room's locked. We keep old beds in there, but protocol is protocol." I left the boy with the nurse and went down the hall. The further I walked, the colder it got. The lights dimmed, humming in time with my pulse. Room 11's door was cracked open. A faint yellow light seeped out. I stepped in. The air was icy, heavy with dust and the metallic temps of old blood. Rows of unused beds stood in the dark, sheets yellowed, mattress seams torn open. I almost turned back. Then I saw her. A woman stood by the window, her back to me. Long black hair, hospital gown, bare feet. She didn't move. "Ma'am," I said, voice thin and hollow. She turned slowly. Her face was blurred, shifting in the light. She spoke in a low, rasping whisper. "Where is my son?" I stared. Who? She stepped closer. Her feet didn't make a sound. "I waited," she said. "He never came. I told them not to take the beads." Her hands reached for me, skin gray, fingers bruised. "The rosary, I gave him that so he'd come back. I told him to never take it off. But you tried, didn't you?" A chill ran down my spine. "No, I was only..." Her mouth twisted. "Don't let it break. If it breaks, we both go." Suddenly, alarms exploded down the hall. I ran, heart pounding, every shadow chasing me. Back in the trauma bay, The boy's monitor showed a systole flatline. We jumped to action. CPR, epinephrine, desperate hands. Nothing. He was gone. But the rosary was snapped. Beads spilled across the sheets. A cold wind rushed through the bay. The lights flickered. For an instant, every monitor in the ER showed room 11's number. I heard footsteps bear slow, soft. I looked up. The woman from room 11 stood at the doorway, eyes locked on the boy's body. She knelt beside him, hands brushing his hair. Then both were gone. The bed was empty, the sheets undisturbed. I stood frozen, unable to breathe. The only sign left was a single black bead on the floor, glinting in the light. By sunrise, the ER returned to normal. No record of the patient. No chart. The nurse who helped me swore she'd never seen him, never touched that rosary. Sometimes, on stormy nights, room 11's door stands ajar. Sometimes I hear two voices whispering, soft as a lullaby. If I find a black bead by my locker, I toss it down the drain and pray the rosary never finds its way back to me. Because in the ER, the worst things are the ones that want to come back. And some prayers, once broken, can never be mended. I'm an ER doctor. You'd think nothing scares me anymore. You see too many things in this job, blood, broken bodies, people begging for one more chance. I thought I'd built up a wall thick enough for anything, but I was wrong. Some nights the ER is different. The rules don't work. The air itself feels wrong, heavy, like the building is holding its breath, waiting for you to notice. It was a Thursday, not that it matters, nights blend together. The clock glowed to 56 a.m., the ambulance bay was empty. I was filling out charts, listening to the ancient radio crackle somewhere behind the nurse's station. Static, a few piano notes, static again. My shoes squeaked on the floor as I headed toward Trauma 1. The smell disinfectant and copper followed me. Nurse Jackie waved me over. You need to see room 7. Something's off. Jackie isn't one to panic. She's seen it all. If Jackie says something's wrong, you listen. I pushed open the door. A woman sat on the bed. Thin, long black hair, tangled like she'd run through brambles. Her hospital gown was too big, bare feet swinging just above the floor. She looked up, eyes wide, the whites showing all the way around, like she'd been holding her breath for years. She said nothing, just stared. I tried to keep my voice calm. Can you tell me your name? She shook her head. Do you know where you are? She shook her head again. Where you hurt? She rolled up her sleeve, 3 deep scratches, old but angry, crossed her forearm. They won't let me leave, she whispered. Her lips barely moved. I knelt beside her. The air was cold in that room, like someone had left a window open. I checked the monitor, pulse slow, BP low. The lines danced, but too softly. Jackie whispered. She walked in alone. No ID, no shoes, no memory. The fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing above us. I felt something brush past my leg, cold, like water. I turned. Nothing. The woman's breath caught in her throat. She pointed to the corner. They watched from there. Her voice sounded like sand. I stepped toward the corner. A shadow moved just outside the circle of light, too quick to be real. I blinked hard. Nothing there. I wrote orders, labs, or fluids, warm blankets, but she wouldn't take the water, wouldn't meet my eyes, wouldn't answer to any name. The door swung open, hard. Jackie flinched. A man stood in the hallway, his face half hidden. Room 7, he asked. I nodded, trying to hide the nerves in my voice. He handed me a file. Found this on the floor. The file was cold, almost damp, as if it had just come in from the rain. I flipped it open. No name, just a picture. The woman in the bed, her hair longer, her eyes less wild, wearing the same hospital gown. The date, 5 years ago. The same day. My blood ran cold. I looked up. The woman stared at the picture, then me. She's still here, she whispered. A gust of cold air rattled the blinds. I stepped into the hallway. The man was gone. I checked the nurse's station. Jackie shook her head. No one walked past. My hands trembled. I took a breath and went back inside. The woman sat perfectly still. Her eyes rolled up, showing just the whites. The monitor flatlined. No warning. A long, steady beep. I rushed to her, checked her neck for a pulse. Ice. Her skin was freezing. Jackie called a code. I started compressions. The body felt wrong, hollow, like something heavy was missing from the room. The lights flickered out. For a second, the whole low was black. Then a single emergency light glowed above the door. In the half-light, I saw shadows moving on the walls, faces hungry, desperate, stretching out from the corners, reaching toward us. I yelled for help. The voices outside faded. It was just me and Jackie and the woman on the bed. The monitor beeped again once, twice, slow and thick. Then the woman's eyes snapped open. She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was strong for someone who'd just flatlined. She leaned close, her breath icy on my face. "Don't let them take me back." Her hand slid away. She exhaled one last breath. A thin trail of mist floated toward the ceiling, dissolving before it touched the light. The room felt empty. Too empty. Jackie and I stared at each other. The woman's body was gone. The bed was cold, the sheet damp. The monitor still beeped. I checked the hallway. No one. Every exit locked. On the bedside table, a bracelet, plastic, with her name worn away. Only the date remained 5 years ago. Tonight, I called security. We combed the ER. No sign of the woman. The cameras glitched. Nothing but static at 2:56 a.m. Some nights I hear footsteps in room 7. I see a shape in the corner, just beyond the light. Sometimes I feel a cold hand brush my skin when no one else is near. I used to think bravery meant never being scared. Now I know. Real fear is knowing some doors should stay shut, and some patients never really leave. And every nurse who's worked a night shift will tell you sometimes, the scariest stories aren't the ones we make up. They're the ones that walk into the ER barefoot and alone, looking for help you can't give. I don't tell these stories often. You learn early in medicine, nobody wants to hear what really keeps you awake. They want facts, not fears. But the ER has a way of changing you. It carves out a place for shadows you can't explain. And every once in a while, those shadows step right up and ask you to look. I was working the late shift, a Monday sliding into Tuesday. The night was humid, windows fogged up, air heavy. I remember the steady hum of the vending machine, the sticky note that said out of order on the coffee pot. We'd had a run of strange cases, panic attacks, chest pain, a toddler with a fever that wouldn't break. By 4:13 a.m. the ER was nearly silent. That's when the call light flashed in room 9. I checked the board, no patient listed. I frowned, rubbing my eyes. Maybe someone cleaning up. I stepped inside. The room was empty, bed made, monitors off, only the faint smell of antiseptic and latex gloves. As I turned to leave, the monitor blinked on by itself. A green pulse line, no patient but a pulse. A cold wave crawled up my arms. I tapped the machine, checked the leads. Nothing attached, but the monitor was steady 60, 2 beats per minute. I tried to power it down. The button stuck, cold under my fingers. Then I heard it, a sound I can't forget. A girl's voice, singing softly, not in English. I breathless, drifting from behind the curtain that divides the room. I froze. Slowly, I pulled the curtain aside. The room was empty, but the singing didn't stop. It grew louder, as if someone was just beside my ear. The air went cold, thick with the scent of old perfume, something sweet, but stale, like wilted flowers. I called out, "Is anyone there?" The singing stopped. The monitor flatlined. The lights flickered, buzzing overhead. A sudden draft chilled my back, like a door had opened. But I was alone. I reached for my phone, fingers trembling, but the screen stayed black. No signal. I looked around, heart hammering. That's when I saw them wet footprints, small, bare, leading from the bathroom to the bed. The prints stopped at the edge of the mattress. There, pressed into the thin white sheet, was a child's handprint, fresh, damp. I checked the bathroom, empty, sink dry. My own reflection in the mirror looked pale, uncertain. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to snap out of it. A whisper behind me, "Help me." I spun around. No one. I ran out, found the charge nurse. "Did you put someone in 9? She shook her head, staring at me like I'd lost it. "No, admits since midnight. The system's locked." We went back together. The footprints were gone. The monitor powered off. Room silent as a grave. That morning, as the shift ended, I checked the logbook. The last patient in room 9, little girl, 8 years old, drowning victim. The date, exactly 1 year ago, tonight. I stood in that empty room, holding the chart, listening to the distant echo of a song I couldn't translate. Sometimes, when I pass by room 9 on night shifts, I catch the scent of faded flowers. Sometimes the monitor flickers, all on its own. Sometimes I hear the whisper again, "Help me." In the end, people think the ER is about blood and adrenaline. They're wrong. Sometimes, it's about the things you can't see, the ones that never get better, the ones who never make it home. You learn to walk softly, to listen for what doesn't want to be heard, and you never ever ignore a call light at 4:13 a.m., even if the room is supposed to be empty. You get used to strange things in the ER, patients talking to people who aren't there, lights flickering at the worst moments, doors that won't stay closed, but every doctor has one shift they can't explain, a night that burrows under the skin and refuses to leave. Mine started with a missing chart. It was after midnight, the waiting room was finally quiet, and I was making rounds, checking vitals, writing notes that no one would read twice. I reached room 5 and stopped. The door was open just a crack, the light inside low and golden, like sunset through dirty glass. I stepped in. A boy sat on the bed, maybe 10, maybe less. He wore pajamas that looked decades old, yellowing with cartoon rockets. He swung his legs, humming tunelessly. The monitor beside him was off, the wires coiled neatly on the tray. He looked up and smiled. His eyes were dark, bottomless, older than they should have been. "Hi, Doc," he said. "You're late." I swallowed. "I'm sorry. Did you need something?" He shook his head. "Not me, she does." He pointed to the shadowy corner by the bathroom. I followed his gaze, but saw nothing. My hands tingled, cold sweat prickling my back. "Who's with you?" I asked. He just smiled again. "She comes every night. She doesn't like to be alone." The air felt thicker. I crossed the room, glanced into the bathroom, empty, except for a faint sweet smell, like old baby powder. When I turned back, the boy's eyes were closed, lips moving in a silent prayer. The intercom crackled above my head. "Dr. Malik to room 5. Stat." My name, but not my voice. It sounded blurred, underwater. I stepped into the hallway, no one around. When I turned back, the boy was gone, the bed perfectly made, the room colder, light flickering. On the windowsill, a single photograph faded. It showed a nurse holding a boy in the same rocket pajamas, but the nurse's face had been scratched out. On the back a date, 20 years ago, tonight. I checked the records. Room 5, 20 years ago, a nurse found dead in the bathroom. Heart attack. No cause. Just gone. The only witness was a little boy. He vanished before anyone could get his name. I tried to shake it off, but that night, I saw the boy everywhere, in the reflection of the supply closet window, in the darkened stairwell, in the way the light glinted off old metal name tags. The next night, the door to room 5 was locked. The new nurse said it jammed sometimes. I still hear humming late at night, when the hallways empty out. Sometimes I smell baby powder, faint as a memory. Sometimes, when I pass the locked door, I feel a chill brush past, and I remember the boy's words. "She doesn't like to be alone." The truth is, the ER isn't haunted by ghosts. It's haunted by memories, by moments that won't let go, and by the patients who were never ready to leave. I wish I could say every night shift is routine. It isn't. Not for me, and not for anyone who's worked in a hospital long enough to recognize what doesn't belong. There are moments when you feel the fabric thin, when what's real starts to unravel just a bit around the edges. I stopped trying to explain those nights, but I remember every detail. It was a slow evening, the kind where you hear the vending machine humming louder than the staff. Around 2:40 a.m., the lights in the corridor flickered, and the smell of rain drifted in through the automatic doors. I'd just finished stitching up a construction worker's hand when the security guard, Rashid, called me over. "There's a woman outside. She says she needs to see you. Only you." That got my attention. Nobody asks for the doctor by name in the ER, not at this hour. I found her sitting on the bench outside, head bowed, a shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. She looked up as I approached. Her face was pale, eyes sunken and hollow, with a kind of desperate recognition. "You don't remember me, do you?" Her voice was hoarse, almost a whisper. I apologized, tried to place her. She smiled sadly. "You tried to help me last year." Room 11. A chill crept down my spine. Room 11 had been sealed for months, ever since a patient died under strange circumstances. I remembered the case. Young woman, severe injuries, brought in from a car crash. She didn't make it, but her name was never confirmed. No family, no records. She held out her wrist. There, still clinging to her skin, was a plastic hospital bracelet, faded and cracked. I could barely make out the numbers 1111. "I need you to come with me," she said. Just for a moment, against every rule and instinct, I followed her back through the automatic doors. She walked slowly, feet bare, leaving no footprints on the wet tile. We reached the dark corridor where room 11 waited, sealed by a heavy fire door. She turned, her eyes suddenly bright, almost pleading. "Open it, please." My hands shook as I fished out the keys. I unlocked the door. The air inside was bitter cold, filled with the scent of disinfectant and something else wet. Earth, old flowers. The woman slipped inside first. I hesitated, then followed. The room was empty except for the old bed, the tangled sheets, the faint outline of someone having just lain there. She sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't want to be forgotten," she said. "That's all I ever wanted. For someone to remember." Before I could reply, the lights snapped off. My heart hammered in my chest. I reached for my phone, no service. In the darkness, I heard a shuddering breath. The woman was gone. The bed was empty, the sheets smooth. Only the bracelet remained, glowing faintly on the pillow. I rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. Something heavy pressed on the other side. I called for help. My voice echoed back, thin and lost. Then I heard footsteps, slow and dragging, outside the room. The lights flickered, just enough to see a shadow moving past the frosted glass. A face pressed against the window for a split second, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Suddenly, the pressure lifted. The door swung open. The corridor was empty, lights humming normally. I stepped out, bracelet clenched in my hand. Rashid met me in the hallway, eyes wide. "I saw you go in," he whispered, "but you were alone." I looked down at the bracelet, then back at room 11. The door creaked, as if breathing. Now, I avoid that corridor on night shifts. But sometimes, when the rain starts and the hall goes quiet, I hear footsteps on the tiles, soft, searching, waiting for someone to remember. And I wonder how many lost souls sit on benches outside, hoping for the doctor who might finally listen, hoping not to be forgotten. Most people think the worst part of the ER is the blood, the trauma, the chaos, but that's not true. The scariest things are the ones that don't make sense, that linger long after your shift ends, haunting the edges of your memory. There's one night I've never talked about, not to my colleagues, not even to myself, if I can help it. But it comes back every time the power flickers, every time the hospital goes to quiet. It was a stormy night, rain lashing against the windows hard enough to rattle the glass. The generator lights cast everything in a sickly yellow. The ER was full and overdosed. 2 car accidents, an old man coughing up blood. In all that noise, I didn't notice when the little girl came in. She was maybe 7, hair dripping wet, a blue stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. No shoes, no coat, just a thin white dress that stuck to her legs. I remember her eyes, most of all huge and dark, shining in the hot light. One of the nurses found her by the vending machines. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just stared straight ahead, hugging her toy. We brought her to an exam room, wrapped her in a blanket. I tried every gentle question, but she stayed silent. The nurse called the police. They said no missing kids had been reported. No calls about a lost girl. The girl watched me with that unblinking gaze. Rabbit pressed so tightly the seams looked ready to burst. I tried to check her vitals. Her skin was cold, but her pulse was strong. The monitor wouldn't pick up a reading, just lines of static. The computer crashed. The lights flickered again. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away, shaking her head. At 3:33 a.m., the power surged. The lights went out for a split second. In the dark I heard a whisper, "Don't let him find me." When the lights came back, she was gone. The blanket lay empty, the rabbit dropped on the floor. I ran into the hallway. The security guard said he'd seen no one leave. The front doors stayed locked, the cameras dead for 2 minutes. We searched the whole R, every room, every closet, nothing. Just silence and the growing unease in my chest. The next morning, the head nurse found muddy footprints leading to the morgue elevator. Tiny bear, trailing water. The blue rabbit remained in lost and found for weeks. No one ever claimed it, but sometimes, on stormy nights, the elevator opens by itself. The smell of rain drifts down the hall, and for a heartbeat, I see a flash of white dress and dark eyes at the far end, just out of reach. Every ER doctor learns to live with things they can't explain, but I still check the security cameras whenever it rains. And I still wonder who or what she was running from, or if someday the one she fears will finally follow her inside. So, the next time you pass a quiet hospital hallway at night, remember some doors are better left closed, and some patients never really leave. If this story sent chills down your spine, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life medical horror stories, and hit the bell so you never miss what happens after dark. Until next time, stay safe, and keep your eyes open.